There are a couple of researchers who talk about this in other social movements too, that it almost encourages more radical violent protests because then activists know that they're going to get coverage, they're going to get attention. And there are certainly some activists in Chile, especially young anarchists, who may think that way. But for the most part, I think that the leadership of the student federations, which are generally the ones that call these big, massive marches together of 100,000 people or more, they actually decry the violence and they try to keep it down. One of the things that protests offers, even if the mainstream media, like a couple of the newspapers or the television stations, do cover it under what we would call, a protest paradigm frame, like violent coverage, that, these are just rioters who are trying to break down the system, that there are some channels, especially like the 24-hour cable channels, like the new CNN Chile or the CNN Chile, are providing like 10 minutes of time for activists to talk with reporters or with interviewers about the issues, not just about the violence. And so it really, even if a protest gets covered poorly in the major newspapers, the activists still might have that time to be able to talk. And I'll tell a quick story, if I can, about this guy that I was interviewing at a protest, and he was talking about violence, because even within protests, the young people know that it's a problem. And he was telling me that someone was about to throw a Molotov cocktail, so basically a glass bottle filled with alcohol that was going to burn once this person lit it, was going to throw it at some police tanks, because there are these big tanks that run throughout the street, and they're actually really scary, and so it sometimes makes sense that people might want to react to them in some way. And this kid I was talking to, and I should say he was probably 19, so he wasn't really a kid, but this young man that I was talking to said, I wanted to shout out at him and say, stop, don't throw the bottle. That everything that was Chilean about me wanted to tell him no, because he didn't see that as the way to fight for education, because he's a student and he wants better education in his country. So there are these big divides even within a movement about violence, and those have happened in social movements all the time. Should we become violent? Should we take up arms? Should we use this tactic or that tactic?